Welcome back to the Gamble Smart channel. Hope you guys are doing well out there. So we're talking about hot and cold and predictability in slot machines today. We've talked about this topic a lot of this channel, but we're going to do something a little bit differently today because we're going to break down every single thing and back it up with source material. So if you really want to go and do some research and figure out how all this stuff works, you don't trust us for whatever reason, and we hear you, we understand that, then that's what we're going to do in this video. So if you're interested in learning exactly how slot machines work and why hot and cold is a myth, this is going to be the video for you. Let's get started. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how slot machines actually work. And it doesn't matter if it's a physical, real slot machine like this or if it's a video reel like your Huff and Puff, Lightning Link, Dragon Link, etc. They all work the same way on the back end. So whenever you hit that spin button, what is actually going on right here? So for every single reel in that game, reel 1, 2, and 3 in this example, there is a random number that is being pulled from a random number generator for each of those reels, okay? So it may come up with number 7, number 14, number 11, okay? So it comes up with those numbers and then it maps to what's called a virtual reel table, okay? And imagine that as a reel strip that's just incredibly long, right? So what is going on when you press that spin button? The random aspect of what you see is the unpredictability about what is going to come next. And slot machines are designed specifically that way, and they are also guaranteed to work that way by third-party entities like GLI Labs, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video, about how they prove that it's actually random and unpredictable. Those are important factors in any kind of Class 3 slot machine like you see behind me. So what is actually going on? Well, the randomness is you do not know what's going next, right? There's no way to predict that. And I know what you're saying. But Mark, I have seen this before where I've been able to predict outcomes. It's confirmation bias. Anytime you see something like that or you feel like you have done something, the slot machine has got you, right? They have got you. And I will tell you that slot machine manufacturers build that kind of stuff into slot machines. It's the best way to fool a human being because what are we? We are pattern seekers. We look for patterns, especially in stuff that appears unknown or stuff that we don't understand fully. We look for patterns to explain what is actually going on. And that is, in essence, how a slot machine exploits us as players, right? They try to trick us into thinking that we have some kind of edge or some kind of knowledge about what's coming next, okay? Listen, we are all looking for an edge when we play slot machines. We are all looking for that method or whatever to be able to sit down and try to trick the machine into giving us a predictable cycle, a hot cycle, for example. And we always try little different things, like we bounce around from different machines, we wait until somebody gets off, we bounce around the denominations, credit values, whatever. We're all doing these things thinking that we will be able to trick the machine or at least figure out which is the paying cycle. And as hard as it is to believe, and we're going to prove this in this video today, as hard as that is to believe, there is nothing you can do as a human being to predict the outcomes of a slot machine. It may seem that way, but that is where the gotcha is. That's what they do to try to trick you. Because if you think that just consider this for a second, if you think that you have an edge or you have a smart way to trick a slot machine, are you more likely to keep playing? I think the answer to that is yes. All right, let's dive more into it. Let's talk a little bit about interference or manipulation of the RNG. Okay, so this is a topic that comes up a lot. We've done a couple of videos on it and the comments have been unbelievable to say the least. And I get where you guys are coming from. But listen, for example, with the Nevada Gaming Control Board, what they do in order to classify something as a gaming device, a slot machine, it must have no outside influence or interference on the RNG outcomes, which means nothing can affect what the RNG is doing. Not your player's card, not the time of day, not the person that's playing, anything like that. There cannot be any control or interference with that RNG operation. And this is the only way that a slot machine can be classified as a slot machine if that were true. So if that were not true, then you're talking about some other kind of gaming device, whether it's a skill-based game or something like that. But as a slot machine, a Class 3 slot machine, which is like what you see behind me, that has to hold true, and that is straight from the Nevada Gaming Control Board. All right, so let's talk about GLI, which is Gaming Laboratories International, and what their role is in all of this. So whenever a slot machine manufacturer creates a new game, they must get this tested by a third-party entity that has nothing to do with the manufacturer, nothing to do with casinos. These guys exist to ensure that the RNGs and the outcomes of the game that they produced are completely unbiased and have no influence or interference from anybody. So if they test a game and they start to see patterns, then they will kick it back to the slot manufacturer and say, there is something wrong with your RNG. It's not working correctly because it must be unpredictable from outcome to outcome. Now, I know what you're saying, but man, I have seen some stuff in my day of playing slot machines. And I know you guys have, because you always light us up in the comments about it. And I hear you, I understand. And that's why it's so difficult for me to try to explain what is actually going on with these machines, because what you see is different than what I'm explaining. And I understand that and I get that fully. But I want you to just consider a couple of things. One, that something else might be going on here. So how do you explain seeing patterns? Like, why is it sometimes when I play in the mornings, it always seems to pay better? It's something called confirmation bias. And we've done this a lot on this channel before, and it's a brain trick, really. Brains are pattern seeking. That's what we are wired to do. We are not wired to understand randomness. We are wired to look for patterns. And so what happens is you start to see things happening and you make an association with that subconsciously in a lot of cases where you don't even realize you're doing it, where you're thinking, I controlled the outcomes. I actually did something that made me have better outcomes on a slot machine. And I think I've figured it out. Whether it's time of day that you're playing or certain bet levels, whatever the case is, you're being rewarded for making a decision and seeing an outcome in your favor. And what happens is your brain latches onto that and you don't even want to consider any other possibility or explanation of what's going on. And I totally get that. That's what makes this so damn freaking hard. It really does, because the pull on slot machines is so strong, it's tough to consider that there may be another explanation to what's going on. So GLI certifies slot machine games to make sure that they are completely unpredictable every single spin that you make. It must be that way to be classified as a slot machine. All right, so how do you explain this hot and cold stuff, right? So does it seem like machines are hot and cold? Absolutely. Are they hot and cold? Absolutely, that is true. But are they intentionally hot and cold? No, that is the part that is not true. But those things do happen. They must happen in randomness for it to be considered random. If you saw patterns like that where it wasn't hot and cold, then I would seriously start to doubt the randomness of the outcomes of the slot machine, right? And so what is actually going on there? So imagine a deck of cards, right? We talk about this a lot on this channel, but I try to put it in ways that is a little bit easier for us to understand, because slot machine math is complicated. I'm not going to lie about that. It is complicated, but a deck of cards most of us understand. There's 52 cards in the deck, right? So your odds of, say, picking out an ace of spades is 1 in 52, right? So if you shuffled the deck of cards and you picked out a card and it was the ace of spades right off the bat, that's a 1 out of 1 probability, right? Well, no, the odds are still 1 in 52. You just got incredibly lucky. Now shuffle the deck and do it again. It might take you 300 times. It might take you 200 times. It might take you 5 times. But what if there was a string where you did it like 2 in a row? Or is the deck changed? Is it now a hot deck? No, it's not. So the other one is the flipping of the coin. We talk about this a lot on this channel also, because it's just really easy to understand for all of us, right? And so one of the things that we used to do is, as a group, we would take a quarter out and flip it 20 times and record how many times that we got heads and how many times that we got tails. Was it always 10 and 10? Absolutely not. In fact, the last time we did it, nobody got 10 out of 10. 10 heads and 10 tails. There were strings, right? There were strings of getting 5 heads in a row. Was that quarter hot? Was the probabilities changing? No, it wasn't. The probability was still 1 out of 2 that it could be heads. But those things will happen. You will see strings of losses and wins, because that is the randomness playing out. And I know it's very difficult to understand that. I'm not trying to come off as, preachy or anything like that. It's just, that is what is going on. That is what randomness is, and it's just something that we are not built to understand. We look for the patterns instead, and that is a slippery slope, as we talked about with slot machines. All right, so I've talked about this a lot, but I really need to put this in this video because for the sake of context of everything else that we're talking about, are slot machines truly random? And they are not. There is no way a slot machine can be truly random and have a predictable outcome for the casino. That's just not possible, right? And so what is going on then? Why do people keep saying slot machines are random? Why did I just got through saying slot machines are random? There's a random aspect and there is a control aspect. The random aspect is the unpredictability, the non-bias, the non-influence on the outcomes of the machine. You do not know what's coming next. Whenever you press the spin button, nobody knows what's coming next. Not you, slot manufacturers, attendants walking around, slot technicians, gaming control. Nobody knows what's going to happen whenever you press that spin button. But there is one thing that will and must happen, is that RNG has to pick from a certain set of outcomes or symbols, right? And so I'm oversimplifying this, but imagine that every single possible hit on the slot machine has a certain probability assigned to it, which is true. So everything that you could possibly get, a cherry, a double diamond, mixed bars, and then when you talk about the more advanced games like Huff and Puff and getting the buzzsaw bonus, all those, the golden buzzsaw, all of those have a probability assigned to it. Let's say 1 in 42. Does that mean in 1 in 42 spins you're going to guarantee get the bonus? No, it does not. It just means that's the overall average over millions and millions of spins. If you took the average of spins that it took to get that bonus, it would come out to 1 in 42. Just like with the deck of cards and the ace of spades, 1 in 52 over time. But in the short term, you're going to see a lot of different swings on either side, right? Could take you 5, could take you 300. That's why sometimes those slot machines, especially double top dollar or top dollar, it just seems like the bonus just won't come. I've done way more than 40 spins. I did 150 spins on a double top dollar recently, not one single bonus. Well, it's 1 in 41, so why didn't it hit? It's because it's an average. You never know what's going to happen. But in the long term, if you did calculate all the different spins that you did, it would come out to that 1 in 42 or whatever the average is. So whenever a slot manufacturer builds a game, that is what is built in, is the probabilities of every single outcome. And so in the short term, it is designed for you not to be able to detect any of this, right? And that is on purpose, but in a way, it's actually tricking you, because you get that in your mind that there are certain probabilities of certain things, and you start to chase it because it has to come soon. If the bonus is 1 in 41 and I haven't gotten it in 50 spins, what is the most likely scenario that you're going to think? I got to just keep, if I just play another 10 spins, I'll probably get it because I'm within that, you know, the range where it's close to the 1 in 41. No. That is a mistake, and that can lead you into trouble, especially with chasing and things like that, because you are looking, your brain is seeking that pattern. Your brain is seeking the result that you are looking for based on the knowledge that you have that there's an average. But that is where slot machines get you every single time, because it is a mathematical average over a lot of different spins. So try to keep all that in mind. The reason hot and cold exists is simply because that will happen in randomness, right? Don't try to latch on to those statements thinking that you found some kind of secret, because you can get into some very big trouble with betting thinking that a slot machine is specifically hot or cold. They don't have those cycles. They don't need to have those cycles. And I know a lot of the comments we say, well, but they have to balance out. They will. It's all mathematical probabilities. They will balance out naturally. The more often the machine is played, the law of large numbers comes into play, and then you will see those averages, right? But we are playing it for the short term. And those are the things that can trick us and really slip us up whenever we're playing a slot machine. So do hot and cold cycles exist? Yes, but they're not intentional, and it's not inside of the game programming. It's not allowed. It is not allowed inside of the game programming. I've seen it. I've done it. You cannot be inside of the game programming. Otherwise, it would never pass the test for GLI or anything else. All right, so why am I telling you all this? It's a very good question. And listen, Dave and I, when we built this channel, we had the idea in mind to create something that would promote responsibility in gaming. And one of the components that we felt was really important to this message was education, understanding how slot machines work. And we feel that if you open your mind just a little bit and understand what I'm saying in this video, and maybe do a little bit of research on your end just to validate it, you know, we would love for you to take us at our word. Believe me, we would. We can tell you all day long our credentials and link you to stuff and whatever, but it's ultimately going to be your decision whether you want to take that leap into figuring out that there may be something else that's going on than what you have experienced, right? And so we encourage you to do that, and we hope that you do. But if you don't, we understand, but just understand this, that it could be causing you to make some very bad betting decisions inside of the casino, especially if you are going off of bad information of hot and cold, or thinking that there's some way to trick the machine into paying, or looking for a hot machine that may continue to pay, or trying to chase bonus. Whatever the case is, whatever you think that you're seeing, try to recognize that it may be your brain playing a trick on you because you're looking for those patterns that don't exist. And that is the one thing that these things are really good at, like we talked about. So I hope that you're open to that, because responsible gaming is incredibly important to us. And it's one of the things that we want to do. Now that we're at 100,000 subscribers, we've done a lot of education on this channel. We're going to continue to do that, but we're always going to tie it back to how it belongs with responsible gaming. Why is it that we do what we do and the videos that we put out? Why is it important for you guys to think responsible whenever you go in and start gaming and playing with your money? Because there's a lot of reckless betting out there, and there's a lot of reckless betting based off of misinformation, which we feel very strongly that could cause a problem, and we don't want you to fall down that rabbit hole, right? So I hope this video helped you out at least a little bit. Please do your own research. Go out there, take a look at some of the links that we put in the description below. We try to outline as much stuff as we can, and we got something really exciting coming up very, very soon. We got word from a very major manufacturer that they are going to sit down and have a one-on-one interview with us, and we are going to answer for the first time ever on YouTube a lot of questions that you guys have had about slot machines. Everything that we talked about in this video and many of the videos that we've done, we are going to have someone deep inside of the industry actually talk to you face to face about this stuff. And hopefully, at least some of you will be open to listening to what is being said and understand that it's not just somebody trying to spread a message of misinformation, right? And it's going to be up to you to decide whether that's going to be worth it for you or not. All right? So be careful out there. Hope you learned something in this video. For you guys that have been with us for a long time, I know you've heard this message over and over again, but we're trying to figure out different ways to come up with presenting information so that maybe more people will be a little bit open to looking a little bit deeper into it if they want to. All right, be safe out there. Gamble smart, gamble safe. We love you guys. See you later. Bye.